my name is Mai, and today I will talk about the unit test and UI test in mobile development in general, and probably the context is for iOS development in particular. And okay, so the content of the whole presentation is about 3 questions for unit test. The first one is, what is the unit test? So this is something you can find on the Wikipedia or if you Google something. So the unit testing is the software method for testing the individual units in your code. So in other words, you just verify that your code works. And it's also, and that is something that if you find on Wikipedia is really theoretical. So for me, unit test is just you write a function and you verified it. And for the UI test, I actually never work with UI test, so this is just some definition that I just printed here. So UI test is testing your UI elements. So for example, if you're implementing a view and then you verify that the view has all the UI elements you need, and that's it, the UI test, so I have nothing else to talk about this one. And there are 3 things about the unit test that I think is really basic. The first one is that the unit test should be written by the programmers. So this one, when I first talk about this one, and everyone come up and talk to me that because they think testing should be a job for tester. So often they think, okay, unit test should be written by tester. So they write test case, but nope. The unit test should be written by the programmer because you are the one who understands your code better than anyone. If you don't, I think you should learn more. And the second one is unit test is really low level, so it's only focused on the really small part of your program. That's why it's called unit. And the third thing is that the idea, the concept of unit test is similar everywhere, but is the only thing that make it different is that the frameworks of use for each programming language. For example, in iOS development is for Objective-C is Kiwi and Spectre, and Quick and Nimble for Swift, and I will have the demo for Quick and Nimble later, and why I like it. The second question we talk about is why unit test? Because you will find yourself asking, someone else, asking yourself this one, the unit test is such a waste of time, then why should they do the unit test? If you're working on some projects that you have deadline, and then you have to do the implementation first, you don't have time for unit test. And the third one is my favorite. Someone told me that their code in bug freeze, and then they don't want to do the unit test. Normally, you don't really trust the people who tell you that their code is bug free. So those are 3 questions, and I will answer them right here. So the benefits of the unit test, that I think there are more than 5 benefits of unit test, but I will just list out these things that I think is the best. So the unit test made a really good documentation. So for example, if you're working on the features, and then you have to spend time, like maybe a working day, 8 hours just to read a space that does not have any practical values, and it does not really help you to define functions, like what do you need to do. So if you have the unit test and then you have the code reviewer, and then that code reviewer will read your unit test and understand what you did. And the second thing is unit test reduce the cost of change. That often you will find yourself, if you want to refactor something, you want to modify the existing function, and you're afraid that you will break things elsewhere. So that's, if you have the really good written unit test, you don't really need to worry about that, because once you modify something, you run the test, and it passed, then everything is good. And it's reduced bugs. This one is really interesting, because I don't really like bugs. I really hate it, but I love fixing it. But if you have the unit test written, so if you think, okay, right now you don't have time for unit test, but in the future you introduce some bugs. And if you don't have the unit test, you have to go back, you have to find out why, and it's just a waste of time. But if you have the test written before, and then you write something, and you just run the test, you make sure it passes, and you don't have to worry about the future bugs because it's not going to happen. And the next one is the unit tests make development faster. I don't think that for the first time unit tester, I don't think that is true because the first time I do unit tests, I spent 2 weeks on one function because I didn't know what to do. And it was lack of documentation, or I didn't find anything on the internet at that point. But think about this, when you implement one function, you send to QA, you don't have that unit tested. And QA failed it because they have more test cases than you do. So they return the tickets. So it's just a waste of time. But if you do that before, you can verify everything before you send that to QA, then they just approve it. And that's why unit tests make development faster. And the last thing I find out is unit tests is really fun. Yeah, it's just writing code. Then I think that's really fun. So, sorry. And then the next question is, when do you do the unit test? So here I have the graph is that there are 2 arguments I want to take to answer this question is the cost of unit tests or the number of dependencies in your code. And the benefit of unit testing, that how obvious is your code. So here is the 4 situations here. So this one, I consider this one is a win-win situation. When you have the complex code with few dependencies, which means that when you write an algorithm by yourself, so you should definitely test it because the benefit of this one is really high, but the dependency is not so much. So you will see the benefit when you do this one. And the second one is the complex code with many dependencies. So this one, you should ask the question, should you do the unit test for this one? And the third one is just maybe you can do that or you can do that, it doesn't matter. It's the trivial code with few dependency. For example, the function that takes 2 integers and return the summary. So I don't think anyone ever tested. And the last one is a trivial code with many dependencies. If you find out this one in your code base, then maybe it's time for you to think of the architectures. Like, why do you have this one appear in your code base after all? And this one is how you do the unit test. So I don't really know how to do the unit test. It depends on you. Is that you have to define that what you want to do, and you have to understand the situation. And then the step 2 is that you define the test case. So this is a step, if you're working in a project, you often have to sit down together with other programmers or even the designer or the product managers. And then you define test case, you ask questions, and then you get the answer, and then you define this one. And then the step 3 is your jobs. You write it out, and then you make sure it passes. Yes, and this is a topic that is talked a lot in unit testing, is the TDD. So TDD is a test-driven development. So it's in the process that before you write the implementation, you define your test case. So you write the test before you actually implement it, and then you run the test. And of course, the first time you run it, it failed because there is no implementation at all. And then you go back to the implementation, you write it, and then you go back to the test, and then you run it again. So that's the test-driven. I don't often do the TDD myself because I think it's the waste of time. But is often I think the TDD is really good if in case you want to write a new function. So it's really good that before you write a new function, you should do the TDD. Write the test before you do it. And when you want to refactor something, especially other people's code, so if you have the unit test to back you up, and you don't have to worry about that. And eventually, the first time I used TDD, I hated it. But eventually, I love it. I don't know why, but I hope you will have a same experience like I do. The second one is BDD. And this one is the behavior-driven development, and people ask me to compare them to. But I can't because they are irrelevant. With the BDD, you actually need to test the behavior of your code, not implementation of your code. And also, this is I find out about the BDD is that it's all about the collaboration and the communication between the team members. If you're working in the agile environment, you often find yourself, I need to talk to the designer, I need to talk to the project managers. And then right at the meeting, you have to define that, and you have to talk in the way that they will understand you. So if you write the unit test, you write that in the language that only you understand. The designer don't understand what you wrote at all. So the BDD is the idea is that to write a test case in the language that is not just a language that only developers understand that, but it's more precise than just English itself. If you write something in English, I would call that a spec. And yes, so that's why we have the framework, for example, the quick and nimble. So in the framework defined when you write the test case, it feels like a natural language. So I will just show you the demo for this one. Yep. So this is the project I set up. And this one is the test case by using the quick and nimble in Swift. So let's take a look at the implementation of this one. So this one, I have a class human and cat. And the cat has a function to adopt a human. And this one is just that when the cat adopt a human, then it has the human servant. So this one, let's take a look at how I write a unit test for this one. Oh, sorry. Yep. So here is how you write a unit test in BDD. So you see that everything is inside the space function, and then each test case is start with a describe, and the context, and it is a test case. So you verify everything inside this one. And why I like this one, because if you take a look at the test case here, and you will see how it's displayed here. So it's really natural feeling. So the majestic cat, after adopting the servant, should have a servant. So that's how you see that in this panel. And this is BDD, so I think it's all just about the language itself. And if you write this unit test in something other than the BDD, let's say this one, and you write that in the HT test, which is the built-in testing framework by Apple. And I will have this one here. Let's delete everything. So this is how you write a test case in EC test. And if you run this one, it should pass. But you see here in this case, you can just see this one, it doesn't really bring any practical value for you. But this one can be understood by everyone that speak English, I think. Yep. So this is why I really like the BDD itself, and there is no comparison for BDD and TDD. So, but for the BDD, I think it's really useful, like in software development. Then I guess that's it. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please shoot. If anyone have question? Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
So what are these two frameworks, like this, what was it called, Nimble and Quick? Like I don't know them at all. So can I explain? What are those?
Quick is testing framework in Swift, and Nimble is matching framework, and they often come together. So Quick, when you write a unit test in Quick, then you often override the Quick spec class, and then you define everything inside the overridden method specs. And then after that, you define each test case by starting with the describe, with the description, and then inside that you explain the context of that. So given then when. So given this test case, and then you give something, the context, and then when something should happen, and that test case should happen inside the quick, inside the it block. So this one.
So which one was this? Like the other one was like these matches, like not nil.
This one is matching. So this one is from Nimble and everything else is from
Yeah,
Quick.
so nimble. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, right.
What's your strategy for testing view controllers?
I don't have strategy for that. I avoid testing it because a view controller is really stateful. Often when you create a view controller, you have to make sure that the view is loaded. So I find it's really hard to test the view controller. So I think that's a job for UI test. And I don't have any experience for UI test, so I don't know. But for unit test, I don't really test the view controller at all. If you have a business logic inside the view controller that you want to test, maybe you should consider moving that outside, like to some other objects or manager's object, and then you test it instead. So in that way, you only need to initialize this without having to worry about the state of the objects. And that's another benefit of the unit test I find really useful, because if you're familiar with unit testing and you really like it, even if you don't write the unit test before you implement it, you think about the testability of your function. And it's often that always ended up in the better code quality. So this is why I really like unit tests, though I don't write it often. Yep.
So I noticed that the test name that appeared on the left
Yes.
in the sidebar, it was in the snake case, and the question is it always so on Swift?
No, this one is actually the default behavior of Quick and Nimble. So if you define this one here, the description here, they just link it with the underscore, so snake cases.
Is it modifiable, or like is it strict?
I think it's strict.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you.
You don't like snake cases?
Well, I come from JavaScript world. I don't have snake cases and tests there.
Yeah, I feel you.
Okay.
One question. So, like you said that, like you asked, like the view controller thing. So, like, what kind of architecture thing are you using? Are you using some special architecture in your code, like these MVVMs or whatever, to separate, the concerns, so you makes the testing easier or whatever?
Yeah, my favorite one is VIP.
Yeah.
The view controller, interactor, and presenter. Yeah, I actually MVVM is fine if we know how to use it. I don't really know how to use it. So I often find myself end up with a massive view model. So I move every business logic inside the view models, and I don't like it. It's just like I move just a business logic from the view controller to the view model. But maybe because I don't know how to use it right. But for the VIP, I find everything is so easy. Maybe we don't really have time to talk about the VIP, but the idea is that everything communicates through the protocol. So there's no really connection or dependency between the two objects. And then they have like the type safety inside the cycles. So I think this is really easy to test. So if you're outside of the cycle, you don't know anything happened inside that. So that's the VIP, and my favorite one.
Yeah, cool. I didn't know that one.
You should read about that one. They are well documented.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you know clean architecture.
Mm.
Yeah, that's VIP.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. So maybe the last one question.
Actually, there is a trick with view controllers. You can just call the view method, and when it loads all the outlets and so on,
Yeah.
you can test.
Yeah, but I don't really like to do that because you have to make sure that it is loaded. So if you forgot to in the test setup, then you are doomed.
Yeah, but for example, if you forget to connect some outlets and where nil and so on, so you could easily test these.
But isn't that verified in the UI elements? If you have to make sure you connect the IP outlets. So I think that the UI testing, you verified all the UI elements.
Yeah, but okay, when UI testing, it takes longer time. So unit test is really quick.
Yeah, maybe. But maybe it depends on how you define unit. So if you define the unit to be a function, so you write it that's for that functions. And then you have to depend on the view controller object. Yep.
Okay. Hey, thank
okay.
you.
Okay, yeah.
And